Hello and welcome to the Home Edify podcast. Edify means to teach or instruct so as to improve the mind and character. And here we talk about what it takes to raise courageous, resilient, lifelong learners. And we dive into how to be that ourselves. So as parents, part of our role, part of our stewardship is giving our kids the example to be lifelong learners. And this podcast is definitely that. Here we learn about what it takes to raise our kids up to the glory of God and how to edify our homes in general, beyond homeschooling, beyond parenting. How do we grow in our own walk so that we can edify our homes, so that we can maintain stewardship, so that we can give God all of the glory all of the time? If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're listening. If you are not new and you're a regular listener, I would encourage you to go and leave us a review. This helps moms find this podcast, and if you're a mom, you know the more encouragement you have pouring into your life, the easier it is to walk with the Lord, the easier it is to dwell on the goodness of who He is. And so if you would just leave that review, that helps us out so much. It means so much to us, and it could really help a mom out who needs that encouragement. Today on the podcast, I am talking with Ashley Taylor. She is the content creator behind This Joy-Filled House. Ashley is incredible. I love Ashley. She's probably one of my best friends on social media. Our chats are they're quirky, hilarious. She is such a fun person. She's also very unique in how God has created her to be. She has ADD. She has ADHD. She has autism. She has a whole list of learning abnormalities. Her kids also have a whole list of learning abnormalities. Her house is a fun blend of different unique types of people and all with different types of learning styles. And so chatting with Ashley in this episode was so awesome for so many reasons, but one of which is learning how to keep up with the different learning styles, how to maintain order in your home. If you make it to the end of this podcast, we talk about what led her to a love of reading. And that is such a big encouragement, that story in particular for moms. So if you would stick around for that. But I'm just so excited to share this episode with you. It is unique in so many ways. Ashley is an awesome person. She's one of the most underrated homeschooling accounts on the internet. If you don't follow her, you should. She has so many cool tips for maintaining order and for homeschooling your kids, from resources to all kinds of different things. So I'm going to stop blabbing. We're going to get to the conversation so you can hear it from her mouth herself. So let's get to it. How did you get started homeschooling?
So I was homeschooled.
Oh, no way.
And
Okay.
my husband was also homeschooled. Separate parts of Texas is where we grew up. We met in college, and homeschool was it was never a question if we were going to homeschool. It was just, we knew it so well. It worked so well for both of us. We're like, why wouldn't we give that gift to our children? And so from the get-go, from before we even were like going to get married, we were like, if we have kids, if we get married, homeschool is like a given. It was never a question for us.
I gotcha. And you've been homeschooling since, I guess, how old are your kids? Like how long?
So my oldest is 9, second one is 8, third one is 6.
Wow. Okay. So what was your homeschooling experience like? I mean, obviously it seems like you loved it. So
Yeah. So I was in public school. Let me rewind. My birthday's in November. So it was that's the cutoff for like being held back a year. My mom said I was so eager to start. She just did kindergarten at home and then was going to put me in first grade. Well, by the time I was in second grade in public school, I was in the handicap kid class for all of my like ADHD, my dysgraphia, my dyscalculia. They just didn't have the resources to handle any of that back then. And and then she put me in this, I don't really know what it's called. It's half on, half off homeschool, basically. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're at the school. Tuesday and Thursday, you're at home, just following the curriculum. And through that, I was in the principal's office every day for talking out of turn or being hyperactive, and then doing school for 5 hours after school was over every time. So she's like, I'm homeschooling anyway. Let's cut out the middleman and just homeschool.
For real. Holy smokes.
Where I got in there. So yeah, the public school predicted that I was not ever going to even graduate high school. It was not supposed to be able to graduate high school. Not only did I graduate high school with a very high GPA, I graduated college in honors. So
Praise
it
the
was
Lord.
like, that was the best gift. I don't even think I would have been a believer if I had been left in public school.
Wow.
I'm very malleable in that area. So I just kind of go where everyone goes. And having a strong foundation to start off my life really set me up for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. Okay, so and excuse me if I'm not asking this properly because I have no idea how to really ask this.
Uh-huh.
But so you have ADHD, right? What are all the things that you had that was making public school not an option really for you?
So I have ADHD, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. That was what I grew up knowing about myself. There's a lot more that kind of goes into like parsing out, like there's autism, and then there's like
Right.
all these things inside. And then same thing with ADHD. ADHD is almost like the word eczema. It's like a catch-all term for
Uh,
you're not normal. So it's like all of these little things that are involved. And so I have a laundry list of things that I am.
okay.
Knowing those words and those definitions make me feel more capable of addressing, hey, this is not something that I should expect myself to be able to grow out of or to teach myself to come away from, but it's like, okay, here's the tools and things you need to make those symptoms less of a day stopper or a problem.
Right. I gotcha. And dysgraphia. What is dysgraphia?
Dysgraphia is like dyslexic, but your hand-eye coordination, there's an interruption in your hand-eye coordination. And so you're like B's, D's, and P's are all flipped around. That's the extent of mine now as it is. It does get like, it's a big spectrum. So you can have it to where you're writing like people read when they have dysgraphia or
Uh,
dyslexia. So their letters are like sometimes their whole words are flipped or upside down, or like you don't outgrow some of those. You know, all your kids, when they're writing the letter E, they always write it backwards, or the letter S is always backwards. Some kids don't outgrow that. And that's where the dissonance comes in and the hand eye coordination thing.
Gotcha. Okay. So if a homeschool parent, if they see these things in their kids, like what is the steps for helping them through that? What was the best thing that helped you really as you were doing your whole homeschool career?
Mm-hmm. So I had chronically terrible handwriting. It was always the joke that I would grow up to be a doctor because my handwriting was illegible, even to
Wait a
myself.
minute. The back of your blackboard, it looks so beautiful. How is that even possible?
Practice. Practice.
That's
So
awesome.
there was a moment, I guess, in college where there was a switch flip, and I was like, huh, this is just like art. I went to college for art. Writing is just a different form of art. It's
Oh,
the strokes and stuff. So I actually can write cursive a lot easier than I can write print.
wow. That's cool.
And so bullet journaling through my young adulthood into early motherhood actually helped figure out my handwriting really. So now I have like legible handwriting. It's just
Wow.
lots of practice and not stressful practice. So like if my hand starts cramping and stuff, you stop and you can't pressure it into existence. So you
Mm,
kind of, it's one of those things where you just provide lots of opportunity to practice and know
mm,
that now we have technology where somebody who's severe chronic dysgraphia can just type it out and print it.
right.
There's very little cases where your handwriting now needs to be legible. It can, where a computer couldn't substitute that
Oh
need.
yeah, technology is definitely there for that. Yeah. See, the reason why I ask is I noticed my kindergartner.
Mhm.
She B's, P's, the exact ones that you just listed out, B's,
Mhm.
D's, and P's, and she knows their names, but she cannot. I know that she's in kindergarten, so it's not really that big of a deal. You
Right.
know what I mean? But I've noticed just a lot of those kinds of things where she
Yeah.
guesses at what it is. You know? But
That
yeah,
age, it's super normal. It's
yeah,
the part of the brain that develops that recognizes like like people's faces and stuff. It takes a long time to develop sometimes. And for most kids, I think it does take a long time to develop. And so having the facial recognition ability and well, a face is still a face when it's this way. A P is not still a P when it's faced this way.
ah,
So that's where that has to like grow and separate, and things in the brain happen to make it so that they can separate those ideas out. And a kindergartner is just not there yet.
I
Now,
gotcha.
if your
That
kid
makes
is
sense.
like 10, 11, 12, and they're still having the B, D, and P problem, that's when I would start saying it's possible that they are having a little bit more of a thing going here.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. So, what does your daily rhythm look like? Like as you're homeschooling your kiddos? I have a lot more questions, but I'm just gonna
Oh,
dive
yeah.
there and watch where everything kind of goes as far as like me asking you questions.
Yeah. No, I love it. So daily rhythm, we actually just went through and kind of revised this right before we took a break. I always like to do things when my kids are otherwise occupied. So like if they're eating, that's like optimal learning time. It's
Okay.
like they're sitting down, they're doing stuff with their hands that's constructive and not destructive. It's helpful to learn during those times. During breakfast, we do our Bible basket. They all take care of their own breakfast. We sit down together, and then I do Bible memorization, theology. I have a whole list of things. I should go get that real quick.
You're good.
Okay, so during breakfast, we'll do Bible, poetry, literature, folklore, and fables. We'll do hymn songs. We'll even do like Bible verse memorization. We just pick a verse kind of out of what we're already reading at the time and then just memorize it until it's memorized. And then wherever we are next in the Bible, we just pick another verse from there. And we just
Like
kind
that.
of keep going that way. And I put it on a card. And then like if we have 3 verses we've memorized, I review the 3 first, and then we add a new. So that way you're just adding to your memory bank the whole time.
Gotcha. Okay.
I break and do an hour of my chores for the day because I am a morning person. I am not motivated to do an hour worth of chores after the end of a school day. So
Can't stand later.
I've learned putting it at the beginning of my day while my kids are kind of doing their wake up time, that they have their own list of morning chores to do. This is probably backwards for you. Just like take care of your room, your belongings, your dishes, your chores, go outside every day, and it's like be helpful Bible study and take care of the living room. That's what we do during spring break. There's a version of that we do that's a little bit more condensed during school days.
Okay.
They take care of their bodies, they take care of their environments, they take care of their belongings. And that's
Ooh,
kind of
I
the
like
theme.
that.
So during this hour chore time, the kids are doing their chores, but I have our like terms composer playlists playing. So it's like classical
Okay.
music, and we'll like once a term we'll talk about that composer. Like we'll have a little bit of history, like a tiny little history lesson, a tiny little bit like, hey, this is what he was thinking during this song. And
Ooh.
I kind of like cherry pick
Uh-huh.
what a traditional composer study would be like because it's not a super new, it's a super new skill for us
I
to
gotcha.
start
Okay. So
thinking about music.
gotcha. Okay. Are y'all Charlotte Mason? Like, do y'all
We
use
are.
a
We're very Charlotte
nice?
Mason based.
That's awesome.
We're not purists. I can't
Right.
ever leave anything purely alone, so I always have to fiddle with things. But we are Charlotte Mason based. I grew up mostly Mason based. I think that became more classical as I got older. Like my mom, she couldn't leave anything alone, and she actually handmade most of our curriculum growing up.
That's cool.
There was not a lot of resources out there for neurodivergent, very
Uh,
left brain and very right brained children. So she had to like
right.
be the middle brain for us.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yes, I have both of my brothers are very engineer, and I am
Uh,
not very not.
gotcha.
So she had to like bridge that gap while she was teaching and kind of wove things together very beautifully.
Oh wow. That's super
Yes,
cool.
yes, I agree. It's super cool. I don't know how she did it because I'm like, surely there's a resource out here for this, and
All
there is.
right.
But when she was looking, there wasn't.
That's super cool. So, okay, so with your kids, how did you get all of it sounds like you are literally laying out a feast. I know that's a Charlotte Mason term of like laying out a feast for them. How did you end up adding all of those resources? And did you do it at the beginning? Was it with your kindergartner? Like, did you add all of these resources in like all together all at once? Because I feel so overwhelmed. Like, we do
Uh-huh.
math, we do reading,
Uh-huh.
and we touch on history and science as their interests lean into those directions.
Right.
I've seen like your whole spread on Instagram and it is beautiful. But how did you get to a point where you added in all of those resources?
So when my eldest started looking like he was interested in learning, it was before traditional kindergarten. He was 5 years old, 4 years old, I feel like. And he was like, tell me about this. Tell me about that. I mean, just the very supernatural, tell me about the world I've been put into questions the why, but why? That
All
moment,
right.
he was like, I'm super interested. Wanted to know about the human body. He wanted to know how trees produced his favorite fruits, like all those things. And so I found a curriculum called Playing Preschool. And it was fairly Charlotte Mason based. I didn't know it at the time. Fairly Charlotte Mason based curriculum. And it was just like 3 sets of 5 minutes throughout the day learning about a specific topic for the week.
Right.
And that's where I started homeschooling. He was like 4 or 5 years old. I did not require learning. Like if he was like, not today, I was not going to push it on him.
Right.
We don't insist on enrolling our kids until they're 7. Then we have a
Okay.
like celebration day for the first time they get to join us. And it's like, now you're included. They have
Okay, cool.
always loved learning together though. So it's not like it was a hard start. It's just like, now we're being intentional and you don't have the option to go away. You have to stay.
I like that. I like that. That's a really cool idea. Okay.
So Charlotte Mason is super adamant. Don't start formal education until 7, and lessons need to be short and concise and to the point. And so we just kind of started with whatever they were interested in. I think after we finished playing preschool, we went to Exploring Nature with Children. That's a nature study that's cyclical. And we did that 3 or 4 times. And then it started like naturally pulling in the history and the math and those things. And so for a long time, nature study was our spine. And then we would just
Wow.
kind of go off on tangents of like, how many acorns does a squirrel eat? Just picking out something. And
Right.
then that would naturally become a math problem. And so by the time my kids were formally in first grade, they were already a couple books into a math curriculum. Like they
That's
taught
cool.
themselves multiplication and division all the way up through just by naturally having conversations of like, hey, how do we make cookies? Oh, there's only 3 cookies. How can we split this evenly amongst us? That kind of just naturally taught them those things. But to answer your question is we started with the basics of math, reading, and writing, because you can't learn anything else until you have those fairly nailed.
Right.
And then we added in history and science. And then I started just adding all the desserts in there. And the desserts being things like fables and literature and read alouds and music and all these beautiful things that make you just excited to be in school. And so I feel like this year is our first full year of embracing all of those nature study, but like in a journal form instead of just sitting outside and saying, that's a squirrel.
I gotcha.
So it's like, let's learn about a squirrel. Why is that one gray and that one red? And let's talk about things in a more deep manner. So it just kind of naturally started spiraling together.
That's cool. That's super neat. So did you read like any resources for Charlotte Mason to get to that point of where you could?
I haven't read
Because
all
I
of Charlotte
haven't
Mason
either.
yet. It's very dense. And I actually just I have the complete set of Charlotte Mason's original stuff. And my first book just got so damaged, I had to throw it away. I'm very sad. So I have to go find another one, but it is on my TBR for this year to go through all of Charlotte Mason's original works and just kind of, they're so dense that you read a paragraph and you're like, my whole worldview just changed. I have to change everything. I think
So relatable. Oh my goodness.
you pick up the next paragraph and you're like, everything just changed again. I have to do so much. And it's so inspiring, but also like you got to just take like little sips of her work because
Yeah.
it can be extremely overwhelming to take on like this whole new mindset.
Well, and I've read, I think it's maybe the first one, the home education, I think is the one I've read, like you said, bits and pieces, because I would get to a point and I would be like, okay, this is so overwhelming.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
haven't finished it at all. But what I thought was so cool is that you've incorporated all these things without like reading through the full book. And I was just curious, like, how did you figure out how to do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, the great thing is there's people who've gone down this path before us. And now this is such a well-traveled path because there's such a huge rush into homeschooling now that this is a path that's well laid out and it's paved. Like my mom did not have a paved path. She was the one making the cuts in
Path.
the grass to make the path. Like
Right.
she was one of those first runners. And so being able to just find people who have gone down this path before you and say, hey, really having a hard time adding in composer study. What are some of your tips? Or finding people who make resources that are Charlotte Mason based. Like there's these really cool packets for artist studies now. And it comes with the printed pictures of the artists, like
Wow.
paintings. And it
Mhm.
comes with their history and then questions you can ask about, thinking deeper about paintings and all this. Really, it's amazing. And I love it. And I covet every single packet I see. And I'm like, yes, another. Yes, please.
That's awesome.
So there's just so much out there that if you have a question, you'd be like, I mean, there's even ChatGPT now. You can just type in,
That's true.
I'm
Yeah.
having a really hard time adding nature study in a realistic way with my 9, 8, and 6-year-old. Please advise. And it will just be like super practical points.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna have to try that for sure. That's awesome. So you are someone who seems so organized. You're in this spurt on Instagram where you're cleaning through like your entire house. How did you find that rhythm for your family? Because it seems like you do several weeks and then you take a few weeks off to focus on organization and getting things back on track. How did you form that rhythm for your family?
I fell into it, to be totally honest. It just was birthed out of necessity. When you're just a stay-at-home mom, when your only job is to take care of the house and provide meals at the end caps of the day, it's pretty straightforward what you need to do. But when you throw in, you're also homeschooling, and for some people, they're even somehow doing like a full-time job on top of all of this. They're like 8 different people at once. I don't know how anyone can do that much. I cannot. But you just kind of have to, you either sink or you swim. And I think
Right.
all of us are given agency to take control, to develop the patterns that will make our day more joyous. And joy not being happy, but the biblical version of joy, of having this real, God is the God of order, putting things into order, and he gave us that
Mm,
part of himself.
yeah.
So having that agency, I think, is a calling. I think women are very good at that. I think that's part of our biblical womanhood, is having agency to create order. And so yeah, like I said, I just kind of like fell into it and like, okay, well, I've been homeschooling for 6 months straight because we go through the year. My house is falling apart. Nothing, I can find nothing. We're stepping over things to try to get places throughout the house. The laundry's piling up. We don't need half of this stuff piled up in this corner. Okay, we're going to take a break. And then I've decided to line it up with when I decided to school through the summer because it's so hot here. My kids are inside bored anyway. And they're like,
Yeah.
Mom, what are we going to do today? I'm like, well, I guess we'll do some math because I don't know what we're going to do today either. And this seems like a baked in schedule. So I took
Right.
our summer break and split it into 2. So 6 weeks and 6 weeks on our spring break and our autumn break. But it's actually really nice to be outside. What kid
That's
wants to
smart.
be inside when it's really nice outside? I don't want to be inside when it's really nice outside. So we take those 6 weeks and we're not without a schedule. Like I showed you the schedule over here, but it's not school based. It's more, we're onboarding life skills. And so they can come alongside me and learn how to sweep, mop, vacuum, rotate the laundry, fold socks, like all those things.
That's awesome, dude. And to hear you talk about that too, I often think about stewardship and
Uh,
how like stewardship is such a big thing of like as just a Christian virtue. It's something that we're called to do as Christians. And just
yeah.
I feel like your schedule it speaks to me. 'Cause when you started your cleaning rush and I remember messaging you and I was like how do you do your homeschool like with this schedule? I can't even remember what the exact question was, but you're like, it's nice outside, so we're just gonna go. And I was like, yes, I needed
Yeah.
that affirmation just to do that. But I thought that was super deep. Um, and I'm just gonna swing back around. How do you add extracurricular activities to the schedule that y'all have? And does that ever like completely mess up your schedule, your rhythm? How do you do that? Because I know I've seen online where you are a part of American Heritage Girls and you do
Uh,
all of those things. How do you add that in without everything just falling apart?
so specifically with American Heritage Girls, it happens in the evenings, so it doesn't
Uh,
really disrupt anything except for like mealtime.
gotcha.
And so my husband then takes steps into that role. I feel like extracurricular works really well if you have an equal partnership with your partner who can
Uh,
just share the load as needed. You
right,
know, it takes more than just one person to drive a ship. If your whole family is the crew of the ship, you see a need, you feel a need, your husband takes over where you need to go. Like you just give this, it's a give and take. Like if he's got to work late, I'm the captain of the ship. If I've got
right,
to go to AHG, he's captain, he's going to take over the ship. And then you start adding more and more of that responsibility to your kids too. And so like the oldest now has some responsibilities like, hey, mom and dad are both sick. You're up, buddy. You got to do this. And we had to do that recently. And he was basically providing for everybody. At 10 years old, they can do so much. And so they can care for, especially like we're right there with them. Like we may be down. We're not totally out, but he's providing. But back to extracurricular. That's what we're talking about. Anyway, with extracurricular, it's hard. I don't do a lot of extracurricular. I'm kind of still protective of our time. I feel like that season is ending for us because my oldest is turning 10 in May. It's like, okay, this is going to start being the time where we do need to start stepping out. I'm going to have to get him a math tutor soon because within another half section of the math book, he's going to be past where I understand. So he needs to find somebody. Sorry, my cat's playing piano.
Okay.
It's a very lively house here, apparently.
That's awesome.
Within half a book, he's going to need a math tutor. I'm going to have to outsource for that because I'm not about to try to hold him back with me trying to understand something that I didn't understand the first time. So co-ops and things like that. When it's during the day, I feel like it does disrupt the rest of the day simply because those of us who are autistic, we get burnt out socially and then we just want to recover for the rest of the day. And those days, I'm like, well, this is why we school 240 days of the year because then we can take off a random day. It doesn't actually end up being 240 days of school. It's scheduled to be 240 days, but we take off here and there as needed. And
I gotcha.
we still end up doing a little more than public school, I feel like, but it's not near as much as it could be if we were like, today's a school day, we got to stay in school. No, we're not
Right.
checklist checkers.
Yeah.
The curriculum is there to serve us. We're not there to serve it.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I know you are neurodivergent. Are any of your kids neurodivergent?
All of them. My
All of
husband
them.
is
Wow.
all of them. Yeah. So my
Holy
husband
smokes.
is ADD, maybe probably OCD. Usually, so there's a three-way Venn diagram. It's OCD, ADHD, and autism. It's like, okay, pick two. So that's like the common combo is you pick two of those, and that's very common.
Oh,
So he is ADHD and OCD. I am autistic and ADHD, and our kids are all versions of that.
wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so how do you manage to teach multiple learning styles, multiple different things that they're working through as far as like who they are and how God made them? How do you do that?
Most of our subjects are actually family style. We all learn all together, just in a circle together. And I try to keep things within a certain amount of time. I try to mix in movement with sit down learning. It's not, okay, we're sitting down from 8 to 4 and learning like a public school. It's like I was telling you about our first part of our day is where we sit down, we have breakfast, and we're doing Bible study, our
Mm,
morning basket. And then we're up for an hour moving and doing our chores and stuff. And then we'll come sit back down and we'll do things like a nature study at that time because it's nice to be outside in the mornings. Or we'll sit down and do math and then we'll get up and have lunch and then we'll sit back down and do quiet time where we're all of us who need to recover from noise. We get an hour to where everyone's at their beds with their headphones on, listening to audiobooks. And so it's like just finding that rhythm of sitting down mixed with movement. Kids need to move anyway. You don't have to be on the spectrum to need to move all the time.
oh yeah.
Kids need to move all the time. So, and then just being mindful of like, hey, even though he's 10, school shouldn't be more than a couple hours of the day, max, when you put it all together.
Yeah.
Our schedule is spread out through the whole day. That way, our time is scheduled and nobody really has time for being bored and mischievous. ADHD
Yeah.
and defiance kind of goes hand in hand. A lot of kids will get thrown into the ODD, oppositional defiance disorder if they have ADHD because they are left unfettered. They are just given to their own devices, and ADHD has a very strong call to the void. Like, what if I push my brother off the slide? What happens? What if I put my foot in the campfire? Just things that are, you would think that, okay, if you thought for that 2 seconds, you would not do that thing.
Right.
But so yeah, just family style I find works best because everyone can have cross conversation. This older ones or even the ones who are just more knowledgeable about something teach the younger ones, and everyone can learn from other people. Then I think the biggest key is just mixing movement with sit down time
I like
and
that. I
being
like
super conscious of how long you're making them sit.
that's good. Yeah, the when you mentioned doing lessons while they were eating or something like that,
Mhm.
I feel like that was a little bit of a key unlocking for me because I want to do that because I noticed
Mhm.
I'll read aloud during their breakfast time. and they're totally locked in. And my eldest, she has to be just moving. She has to be doing something. And the more that she's moving, the more she pays attention. But if she has to like laser focus on it, it's like not happening, you know? And she wants to learn. Like she wants to read. She has all of these interests. And so I'm trying to follow her interest and give her the tools she needs to be able to research and do those things.
Absolutely.
But also realizing that she's like 5, you know? So that's a little hard at the same time. So
Sure.
but yeah. So what kind of curriculum do y'all use, and how did you end up picking those things?
So whenever anyone asks, like, how do you choose a curriculum? My first thing is, do you have an educational philosophy first? Because that will narrow your field of focus from, I don't know if you've ever been to a homeschool convention, but the amount of curriculum out there is vast and extremely overwhelming because all of them look so good. They're also beautiful. They're also like, well, this has this benefit, but this has this benefit. How do you choose? So if you nail your, and there's quizzes online for this, if you nail your educational philosophy, it'll give you the freedom to say yes or no to things so much more easily. So I knew pretty early on, we're Charlotte Mason. We're 99% Charlotte Mason. There's some eclecticness or child-ledness in there sometimes, but generally, if it's up to me, we're Charlotte Mason based. And so I looked at a couple different Charlotte Mason based curriculums. I looked at, what's that one? Ambleside online first, and that was super overwhelming to me. I was like, that looks extremely parent heavy, like a lot of preparedness on my part. And I'm not there yet. So let's look at the next one. The next one was Charlotte Mason, but kind of had guardrails on it where things were picked out for you. All you had to do was just kind of follow this list, and it's a gentle feast is what we use as our spine. Okay. And this is where we're not purists. I don't follow it exactly. You can, and there's no problem with you doing it that way. But a gentle feast gives you like, hey, we're going to do early American history. Here's the books you're going to read, because Charlotte Mason is very literature based. You read the stories about the time, and that gives the memory, and it helps you absorb that knowledge. But you're on your own for nature study and math, and I think there's a couple other things. And so I grew up using Matthew C. I talked to both of my brothers, who I mentioned before were engineers, and I was like, did you have a hard time? Because my oldest is very math and very engineer driven. So he wants to become an engineer. I'm like,
that's cool.
Let's support that, please, because then you can help me into my retirement, right? So he's very math driven. I didn't want to find a curriculum that, like, for me, I just needed something that would satisfy a college basic. My brothers did math the whole time. So I was like, I interviewed both of my brothers and I said, how was the leap from Matthew C to college math? And they were like, easy peasy, prepared us just fine. And then I went to the homeschool convention and I interviewed Steve Demme, the author of Matthew C. And I'm like, why should I use Matthew C? Go ahead, sell me. Go ahead and sell me on this. Why should I use your curriculum? Even though I fully used that most of my own education. And I loved everything he had to say. He satisfied all my answers. And so we've used Matthew C. since.
Oh, nice.
And that's
very cool.
Yeah, I love Matthew C. He's the teacher. I'm just support. Okay. I'm not the teacher in math. So I love that about it. And then we have, like, I feel like I just kind of grab what we need and satisfy those things. Like if there's a language arts issue, like, hey, I'm super bored of reading this thing, I'll look around, and usually thrift stores is where I find, especially like language arts books. Like I got Bob books from the thrift store.
Oh, wow.
I think the only thing that I intentionally went out and sought was teacher kids to read in 100 Easy Lessons or something like that. The title's like, and I feel like the first half of that book is so strong, and then all of my kids hate the last half of that book. So we usually switch off to like Bob books or whatever books they're interested in, and I just find basic versions of that.
No, that's super helpful. And Matthew C, is that an online curriculum base, or is that?
No, so I'd show you the books, except I'm using it to hold up my computer higher. So
you're good.
It's a physical workbook, and then it comes with a DVD where it's pre-recorded lessons where he teaches. Okay. And it's like the first 2 or 3 lessons are practice, where you use the manipulatives, the blocks that go and try to do it very visually. Then the next couple of lessons, you try to not use the blocks so that way you internalize these lessons. And then the last page is like enrichment and mastery. So you don't move on from a lesson until they have mastered that stop.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Was it hard to switch from like your mom creating all of the curriculum to using resources? Was that a difficult jump for you?
Yeah.
No, okay.
No.
Because I don't know why, but I feel this overwhelming pressure to do it myself, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
just hearing how you use resources is freeing too, in the same sense. It's like, okay, so it's not a big deal to have somebody on a screen teaching them whatever lessons you want to teach them.
Curriculum is there to support your journey. You're not there to support its journey. You can pick up and put down curriculum over and over and over again. Like we pick up the 100 easy, teach our kids to read 100 easy lessons, whatever, some arrangement of those words. We pick it up and put it down all the time. We'll skip lessons. Like it's there to fill in what isn't working with other things. And so we actually use like 3 or 4 different language arts programs just to keep things fresh and keep things interesting, because reading is such an important skill and we want them to like reading. So we have to keep it interesting and fresh. And I've made things before, like you can make things. Like if you have an overwhelming call to make things, maybe you are being called to make things. But also, don't feel guilted into making things
Right.
just because you see other people making things. You don't have to make things.
That's good to know. Good to know. So, your kids, what is it like watching them be learners? How are you ensuring that your kids are lifelong learners? Because you seem like that yourself. Like your house is full of books, from what I can tell. And it seems like y'all have just made this cool space to be able to learn freely. What does that look like in your household, creating lifelong learners?
Gosh, I hope I'm making lifelong learners. I guess the proof will be in the pudding when they're adults, right? I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if I'm making lifelong learners yet. I hope I am.
Right.
So the whole idea is to teach them how to learn, and that learning is fine. You don't have to be. I have a lot of perfectionists in my house too. And a lot of my perfectionists are like, but I didn't get it right the first time, so why should I keep trying? It's like, it's okay to mess up. It's okay not to know. It's okay to need to learn, and showing them that process of like, I don't know this thing. Let's look it up together. And it kind of like, I don't have to know everything right away, right now. It's like, this is why you're in school, is to learn these things, to onboard this information. And we're very big on that. School is just the word for learning as a child, but it doesn't stop when you turn 18. You are always learning. Like my husband is self-taught programmer. He did that as an adult, and my kids got to watch him move through that. Like, hey, I'm super stressed out because I just told a client that I can do this thing, but I actually don't know how to do this thing, and now I've got to learn it really fast and produce it by tomorrow. And just having an atmosphere of we're learning and making mistakes is okay. And then also being stress-free when it comes to learning. Like I know a really big hang up for most homeschoolers, especially with homeschoolers of boys, is handwriting. My boys cannot tolerate handwriting. To say that the great thing about handwriting is you can learn it in a very short space of time. You don't have to spend your whole 12 years of education teaching handwriting.
Yeah.
So I think I just saw a statistic that said all of what's being taught in public school right now can be taught at home in 5 years, the
Wow.
whole 12 years. So you're not behind. You have
Right.
plenty of time. Just because your 10-year-old is just now starting to actually try to read doesn't mean he's behind. He's just learning at his own pace. Obviously, you need to keep an eye on some of those things because there could be disorders and things like that that you need to be aware of, like dyslexia. But letting kids have the freedom to learn at their own pace is a big thing too. And
That's
that pace
awesome.
will start getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker as they realize learning is fun. Learning is beneficial to me. My eldest wants to have a big ant farm, and he has a specific ant he's picked out. And then he had me print out this like pamphlet worth of information to learn how to take care of this ant farm. Because I was like, you can have ants as long as they aren't the stinging kind or the eating my house kind. Because if they get out, I don't want there to be major repercussions, right? And you also have to learn how to take care of this creature. You can't just, I'm bored of this, I'm done, and just let them die. That's not stewardship. That's cruelty. So you need to, even though they're ants, you still need to know how to take care of them. And the best way you can learn how to take care of them is by doing research. And so it's almost become like this whole like research paper. He gets books about it. He looks on YouTube about it. And so he's teaching himself these things. And just take those moments where it's like, oh, they have a passion project. They are secretly learning and just like, okay, what if we went to the library and you looked up what this looks like in a book?
Oh, that's
And just
awesome.
kind of secretly sneaking in like, hey, this is actually learning and it's fun and you're excited about it.
That's awesome. Super cool. So, oh wait, so is your husband a software engineer?
Yes.
My husband is too.
Awesome. How
When
cool
you
is
said
that?
that is super cool. Yeah, when we got married, actually, it's so funny. I pull him as like the example of lifelong learner because while we were married, when we got married, he was not a programmer, he was not a software engineer, and then he
Same with mine.
self-taught through YouTube and different resources.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is
Same thing
super
with my
cool.
husband.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. That is super cool. So, what is the biggest thing that you've learned as a homeschool mom?
Oh my gosh. I think this is more of a parenting thing than it just a homeschooling thing, but so I think every parent can use this.
Mm.
That I knew consistency was super important, but I underestimated how important consistency was. And I think we are unwinding some of the unintentional damage we did by having weak parenting early on. And we're dealing with that now.
Mm.
So having consistency in like, well, you cannot watch TV until everything on this checklist is done. That's our rule for spring break. Everything on this checklist, your body, your surroundings, and your belongings have to be cared for before you get to relax and have like, that's how it would be like if you're an adult. So you need to, as we're training you to be adults.
Right.
So, but feel like early on, I'd be like, well, today I want to sit around and watch TV. So get the list. Let's watch TV all day. And that kind of shot us in the foot. I feel like later on now, because we get a lot of, well, why can't I watch TV? I did half of the list. Why can't I watch TV? It's raining outside. All of these things. And I'm hearing myself, my old self echoing back.
I feel like all of parenting is them reflecting back all of your.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's not a beautiful thing.
No. My goodness, parenting is the biggest sanctification process. People talk about marriage, like marriage is the big thing that's going to really sanctify you, and it was like, but my kids way more than marriage ever did. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, at least
Having kids is what led me to my autism diagnosis. So I was like,
really.
something is going on here.
Okay, so how did you get diagnosed?
So I'm not formally diagnosed
Okay.
with autism. I am formally diagnosed with everything else. Autism is the only thing that I'm just not. The proof is there. I don't really need someone to say, yes, you were right.
Right. It's a
And
tool
plus,
for you, basically.
right.
Yeah.
And 81% of women who believe they are autistic are correct. So it's like, I'm going to just go with the numbers then.
Right.
And not pay the $500 for you to say, yes, you are. So I was actually on TikTok and my feed was filled with all of these women in their 30s talking about how they've been late diagnosed autism in their 30s and what their life was like, some of the symptoms they were feeling now. But what really got me was when somebody described what their childhood was like. So autism in boys is different than autism in girls for the most part.
Right.
It's pretty rare to have a classic TV version of autism for girls. It's very different for girls. We're always the goody two shoes. We're always the teacher's pet. We're very high functioning, and that's why we slip under the radar until we're in adulthood and things start coming down and all the sensory issues start coming up. I was like, I actually sent this woman's list of things in a quiz format that I designed to my mom.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yes or no on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, what was my childhood like? And that's where it was like, there is no doubt that I was autistic in my childhood. And it's like, okay, so all of these signs, plus all of these symptoms I'm feeling as an adult, and plus when I started onboarding some of the change, like wearing slightly shaded sunglasses and earbuds in the grocery store, my life has been changed.
Really?
I'm no longer overwhelmed. I listen to an audiobook now and I can like think in the grocery store. I'm not super overwhelmed. I'm not nauseous like I was. I didn't know you're not supposed to feel nauseous in grocery stores. I just thought being around so many smells made you nauseous. Like, that's
that was
not
a
a normal
normal
thing.
reality. Yeah.
So like just learning that, hey, these things that when they're all together really overwhelm you and you feel like you have to crawl into a dark hole to recover for 3 days, not normal.
Good to
It's
know.
like, oh, thanks for telling me.
I feel like all of those things, knowing what they are, knowing if you have it or not, is
Uh-huh.
more like this tool toolbox of just like, okay, I can figure out how to work around this, or like, yeah, or buy into this as a strength or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes. So our biggest thing here, because we all have a variety of different things, is you cannot expect society to change for you. Your job is to overcome what you can, even if it's hard. Hard is not an excuse. Overcome what you can and make changes where you can't. And so my middle child, who's my probably my most autistic, we're still all very high functioning, but he's probably on the scale a little farther than most of us. For a long time, he couldn't go anywhere without noise canceling headphones. But we didn't stop there. We kept slowly exposing him over time. And because he's high functioning, he can be exposed to more. That's not the case for people who are a little lower functioning. Like you slowly start getting him used to building a callus for grocery stores are noisy. It's okay to have headphones in, but you also can't wear headphones in a crowded place because you need to know what's going on.
Right.
For your own safety. You're not going to have a person with you everywhere you go unless you hire that person. So let's try not to need that person.
I like that. I like that a lot. Headphones have been a major game changer in my house because my eldest gets overwhelmed all of the time with loud noises. And if she slips those on, even if she doesn't even have anything playing in them, it calms her down. I mean, that's super cool to know that there's other families that do the same thing, you know, like that's super neat. Oh my goodness. Well, as a last question on all of my podcast interviews, I like to ask, what is one book that has shaped you and made you into the person you are today? It could be any genre, anything.
Mine is super controversial because I feel like either you're totally against this book or you're just fine with this book. But mine has to be the very first Harry Potter book.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. Oh, explain.
When I was 11, I was not reading. I was not reading on my own at 11. And my mom was trying and trying, throwing books at me left, right, and center. And Harry Potter had just come to America. And my super religious grandmother said, all the kids are reading this book. You should try it. And it was just such an odd request from my grandmother. I don't know why, but I cracked it open and I read the first page, and the first page is a very good opener. Like it's a very good hook. And so I was like, I found myself turning the pages, and pretty soon I was like, the book's over. What do I do now? What do I do now? And then I had to wait a whole year for the next book to come to America.
Oh my goodness.
And during that time, I was like, wait, are there all books this way? Are all books this interesting? And so the little girl who told her mom, I will never like reading, was suddenly reading. And that's the whole, last year I read 100 books in 1 year.
Oh Lord. Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. It's just that turned me into the lifelong reader that I am now. And that has helped my personal education moving forward. It's helped me become a better teacher for my kids. That one book was the unlock for a lifelong love of reading.
That's awesome. Dude, got me emotional over here. That's so cool. Oh my goodness.
Well, and it was such a good lesson to myself for my own kids who are still struggling to love reading too. Is you never know what the next book is. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Because I don't know how many times my mom handed me a book and I was like, whatever, mom, whatever. And it just took one book. It took that one book to just unleash it. And from there, I mean, I'm one of the laundry list of things that I was telling you that I am. I'm hyperlexic. I can read 100 pages in an hour with an intense retention rate, a comprehension rate.
That is incredible.
I would have never known that if I hadn't read that first book.
Wow. So homeschooling quite literally changed your life. You could have been a totally different person had it not been.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I would not have graduated high school. I would not have been a believer. I would not met my husband. I would not have gone to college. All of these things drastically changed. It was a sacrifice on my mom and dad's part, but it was for eternal reasons.
Wow. That's awesome. Dude, I have a ton of more questions that I could ask, but I am going to end it right here. And for all those listening, Ashley's Instagram is ThisJoyFilledHouse. And so you can find her, all of her resources. Her Instagram stories are banging. Okay. Is that the term that kids use now? I don't even know. Anyway,
I don't know.
Her stories are lit. Okay. Because you can hop on and no joke, I get so motivated. I watch her stuff and I'm like, okay, dude, if Ashley can do that, I can do this. And I have in the few weeks, I have cleaned out my pantry. All those things. It's kind of wild. Like I'm normally somebody who gets very overwhelmed by those things, but just watching you go through your checklist has helped me get
Yay!
through. It's been awesome. It has been truly awesome. Those are one of the things people have like a bad rap about social media. And
Sure, yeah.
I try not to stay on hardly at all, especially I have my boundaries set, during the day.
Right.
But when I do hop on and I do follow people with good content, it really does motivate me to be a better person. And for that, I'm super thankful.
Yeah. Early on, that was my only form of homeschool community because we didn't live in a place where there was good community. So that was the only place where I could talk to like-minded homeschool parents.
Wow. Dude, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to follow Ashley, you should. It's This Joy-Filled House. Yep. And then are there any other resources that you have besides your Instagram account?
I'm This Joy-Filled House on TikTok as well, but I don't really post there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and that's pretty much all I am right now.
I gotcha. Very cool. All right. And is there anything last words you'd like to say for any of the listeners that are listening?
Sure. Homeschool is a journey. Don't expect to know what you're doing right away.
I like that. Super cool. Thank you for listening to the Home Edify podcast. All literature, book recommendations, and websites mentioned in today's show will be linked in the details below. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube, and don't forget to follow along on Instagram at Home Edify Podcast to enjoy clips from our latest episodes and day-to-day encouragement. Our prayer is that you were inspired to seek after your child's heart and mind. Thanks again for listening.
So, Mom, are you done with your podcast?
Yeah, I learned so much.
Thanks for coming to the podcast. Bye.